Hello. Okay, for my next panel, we've got a session about franchising, the virtues and difficulties of being a franchisee in 2018. Selling new cars doesn't work in every location, and while there can be some huge wins, it's not without its struggles and takes dedication to a brand to be successful. And for this panel, we've got a group who know what a difference the right franchise can make. So please put your hands together and welcome them to the stage. Where's the rest of them, Will? Hidden them around the corner. Hi, guys. Okay, some introductions. To my left here, we have Will Blackshaw. He's the owner of a family dealer group, Blackshaws, with Mitsubishi, Suzuki and Nissan franchises. You're based in the north of England. Then we've got Nick Laird. He's the managing director of SsangYong UK. His brand is one that's gone for a huge change in the last few years, and they're actively on the lookout for new dealers. And then we've got Ken Savage, who I'm sure everybody knows. He's the chairman of Perry's, non-executive director for the National Franchise Dealers Association, and he knows the pains that dealers can suffer with the wrong franchise, but also knows how to make them profitable. So, welcome, guys. Thank you very much for giving up your time today. So, let's kick off with the advice, Will, that you would give to a dealer who's looking to take their first steps into the world of franchise car sales. What would it be?
The first question I would ask is why they want to do it. For me personally, the last 2 years have been a bit of a roller coaster, and I think in life sometimes we forget about the important people to us, e.g. your family. So firstly, I'll be conscious of how much time you're going to have to put into the business. Not saying don't do it, but just keep that at the front of your mind. And then really, there's two things for me. Firstly, return on investment. You need to have a hard look at the numbers and make sure that's going to work. And secondly, but most importantly, the franchise you're looking to work with are these nice people. I think in this industry, we really forget about people, and we're looking at numbers. We're talking so much about digital, and for me, I just like the people around it. So speak to other dealers that have potentially got that franchise. Make sure that they're nice people, easy to work with. I was talking to some people before, and all we seem to do is sit there going, it's hard at the minute, this is hard, that's hard. I was talking to a gentleman just before who's disappeared to a workshop, and he was saying, with his franchise, it feels like just talking to a brick wall. And that's sad in these times. So back to the franchise part of it, though. Obviously, you need to make some money. That's what it's all about. Is there an opportunity there? Is it the right demographic for that franchise, for your area? Is there a reason people aren't representing that franchise in the area? Does that tell you something? But to me, just speak to people and find some nice people to work with and make the job enjoyable.
So you took on Mitsubishi in recent years, wasn't it? I seem to remember.
That's correct.
So how did you come about to choosing them as the brand that you wanted to represent, and how was it setting up with that manufacturer?
I'll be very honest. We ended up with a site that needed a franchise, and we obviously had a look at what was available, what competition was around, found a few franchises, but there was a presentation from Mitsubishi to us where there was all the staff together, and they said, oh, we don't enforce staff to wear ties, we want the staff to be happy and comfortable. And you could just talk to the people, and I thought, these seem a nice bunch of guys. And fast forwarding to very recently, sadly, a member of one of the franchises passed away earlier in the year, who'd been in the franchise a lot of years, and they renamed an office after that gentleman, and I think that speaks volumes. So I'd rather make a few less quid, but work with nice people.
Ken, I'm going to come to you on this point as well. I mean, you've got a number of different franchises. How should people pick one in your mind?
Well, I'm not sure it's quite that easy where you just pick one. I mean, we've got 13 different franchises, so we see a lot of variance in terms of approach. We see some franchises take quite an aggressive approach, and other franchises take a more of a working with you approach. But at the end of the day, what's important is how much money you're going to make. We also see with franchises that it's cyclical, and that often follows a product mix. So, a franchise gets a hot new product, and as dealers, we enjoy the benefits of that, and vice versa, as sometimes we've seen in the past where franchises go through a very poor period of product. Customers don't really want to buy the products for one reason or another. It might be price, it might be lack of technology, and then it becomes much more difficult. But you're in it for the long term, so you have to take the rough with the smooth. And the benefit of having a larger group is that with 13 different franchises, you can afford for one or two of those franchises just to be a bit off the pace. And the franchises that are on the pace will drag you through. In current times, there's probably more off than on at the moment, but you just have to dig deep and do your best. But it's all about relationships, and we find we do best with franchises where we've got scale. We've got 15 Vauxhall businesses, for instance, and 7 Ford businesses, and because of that scale, we across the business, there's a great understanding of those franchises. Where we've got representation with one or possibly two sites, there's lack of really understanding under the skin of those franchises perhaps at a senior level. And if the senior guys don't really understand the franchise, you become more reliant on perhaps some more junior people who may or may not have that deep understanding. And I think that's the point. It's whatever franchise it is, it's about understanding and working the franchise. And sometimes you can be quite surprised where sales managers are operating a franchise and there's bits that they don't understand. And unless they know every nuance of that franchise, it's going to be very, very difficult.
What was the last franchise you added to the group?
I'm trying to think. Nissan. We brought Nissan in. Unfortunately, that wasn't successful, and we're exiting Nissan. It was nothing personal with Nissan, but it was just the fact that we put it in a market area that it was always going to be a gamble, and it didn't work out. So we sort of recognised that, and we're working our notice on with Nissan at the moment. But I wouldn't, I don't have a problem with Nissan. Would take it on again. Good franchise, quite a tough franchise, very complex franchise, but they're all complex these days.
And with Vauxhall at the moment putting all of their dealers on notice, has that destabilised things at all?
We are actually doing better with Vauxhall this year than last year. And so often the case that when a franchise is having a difficult time, sometimes the dealers can do all right. And again, it comes back to, well, I say all right. We're not making the money we should be making, but it's better than last year, and we are turning a profit on it. But we have to because of the sheer scale of our investment with Vauxhall. And we've got a lot of Vauxhall expertise from Darren, our managing director, who's ran a Vauxhall business. All our regional directors are deep into Vauxhall, have all run Vauxhall businesses. So throughout the whole organisation, they understand the nuances of that franchise.
Nick, when it comes to attracting dealers to the SsangYong brand, is that a difficult thing for you at the moment, or are you finding that they're very receptive to a new opportunity?
Firstly, before I answer that question, I want to just echo what the two guys have both said. Certainly for us, finding dealers that want to work with you over the longer term is certainly what we see as being the difference between success and failure in the dealerships we work with. And it is a long term, and it is about the people, and it is about the product. Because if the product is there, then over the long term you'll be successful. Certainly we are finding at the moment a good inbound level of discussions for where we have open points in the country. Clearly we'd like to do more. Sorry for moving my head a little there. We'd like to do more still. And we're receiving interest from dealerships or people who have other franchises across the various franchises. Someone the size of Perry's, for example, would probably be too large for us as an organisation, and getting that senior attention, I think, is very important to have that blend of understanding for the give and take that's required.
So what do new dealers have to consider when they're looking to take on a franchise such as yours?
I think there are 3 or 4 things. Coming to the question of when's the right time for a dealer to take on a franchise, you clearly have to have a level of background and stability within the business and evidence of financial performance. For all of the financiers of the business, they're going to want to see that. And certainly for us, it's things like, are you in a part of the country where our type of vehicles sell well? So dealers who are used to selling 4x4s and SUVs, in our case, sit well in our franchise. And the third thing, I think, is someone who's trying to create something for the future. So quite often we see people who are trying to create something for a 3, 5, 7-year period beyond what they have today.
Will, when it comes to finding new properties for dealerships, is that a struggle? What should people be looking for?
Something cheap, I guess. For me personally, I've only expanded the one dealership. We had very limited choices where we were, so really we only had one choice, if I'm being 100% honest. It fitted. There was other dealerships on the doorstep, so there was already traffic to that area. Good links off the main motorway, and as I said, it was cheap, so happy days.
Ken, do you struggle to find new property?
Yeah, it's always a struggle, property, and when you're in the motor business, you're also in the property business. We in our group, we've got 80% of our properties are actually freehold, so it's a big job managing that, and we're constantly looking for new compounds, or probably more compounds is often our challenge. We don't tend to move dealerships that often. Although saying that, we've just built a new dealership in Chesterfield, which is a Ford store, which apparently is the largest Ford store in Europe now, so that's a bit scary, but very proud of the location, and the facility is just tremendous, and it's going to be very much the flagship for the group. But property is something that you've got to work on constantly. Certainly a business of our size, I'm constantly in conversation with our property advisors in terms of opportunities and properties that perhaps were surplus to requirements, although we haven't got too many of those, but it's more a case of looking for the opportunities out there. But it's a tough old game. But the property market's in great flux at the moment. With there's a lot of traditional retailers that are struggling. So those properties are coming to the market, and of course we've seen a shake up in our own sector. So I'm not sure what the effect on valuation that is going to be. But there's going to be a bit of property around, I suspect.
Have you thought about putting dealerships into slightly unusual places like shopping centres, as we've seen, or do you think that's just a fad that's going to disappear?
I did ask our property guy to look at the cost of putting opening a display in a shopping centre, and the prices were scary. The rent was £250,000 a year. Then you've got the rates on top of that, and then he said, and they probably wouldn't have you. So, and you think for that sort of money you could have a decent-sized dealership. So I'm not quite sure why you would go down that route, because okay, you get a lot of footfall, you get a lot of inquiries, but you still got to back it up with a full-size dealership.
Will, we've seen some interesting results from lots of different dealer groups, and lots of people are saying times are pretty tough out there. How are you finding it as a franchise car dealer at the moment? Is it as tough as people are saying?
I know I look well for it, but I've been in the industry now for 18 years. And this is the most challenging I've found it. But, the market is what it is. We can sit there throwing more money at marketing, advertising, but for me, it's just now is the time to really have a hard look at your whole customer journey from a customer satisfaction point of view. Phone systems, there's some good companies not far from this stage who help you with your phone calls, online inquiries. Make sure we're absolutely 100% bang on it, because I think as long as you get the customer satisfaction bit right, the rest will follow. And I know it's, I'm telling the guys here how to suck eggs. We all know customer satisfaction is important, but you've got to really generally care right now about customers, their emotions. To me, this is a people and an emotion industry. The products, the bit that goes with it. So, yeah, it's tough, but the stuff you can be doing, and it's close to home stuff.
Do you think you've been successful because you are a family business and that you are still actively involved? Do people buy from your family?
Yeah, sadly I never met my grandfather, but the amount of people that have said to me over the years, you know, your grandfather's a great fella, and, you know, as I said before, I'm not a greedy person. I'd rather make a few less quid, but I take great pride in our family business. We're 7 months away from celebrating 100 years, and, you know, stood in the bar, your local villages, when people say, yeah, your grandfather's a great fella, your dad was a great fella, I'm hoping people think the same about myself and my sister, who's actively involved in the business. It's, you know, our brand is our name in a non-arrogant way.
But I suppose you would say to people looking to make that jump that you have to live and breathe it.
Yeah, totally. And, like, you know, I live 30 miles north of Newcastle. I'm hoping to get a good 4-hour drive up tonight, but I'm going to collect a car from Stoke, so instead of being a 3-hour drive, I've got a 6-hour drive home, because you're trying to get that extra unit in. You put your name where, your mouth where you, sorry, lost my words there. Yeah, you put your heart into it. New Year's Eve, I've been delivering courtesy cars to customers when they're trying to get away to see family. Sundays in painting walls, yeah. But as I said before, the last 2 years have been a bit of a roller coaster for me, and don't forget your family and the people that's important to you. We get so hung up on working hard, longer hours. I'm trying to work less hours, and I'd love our staff to work less hours, because we get one crack at life, so make sure you enjoy it.
Ken, how are you finding the market at the moment? Is it as tough as people are saying?
It's really tough. Yeah, I mean, we're doing all right, but we're working very, very hard to what feels like standing still. We're sort of comparing ourselves against last year, which wasn't a great year. It was hard work last year, and we're sort of there or thereabouts. But it's hard, and, you know, in fact, last couple of weeks seem to be particularly hard. It seems to have dried up. Perhaps it's the good weather. We sometimes see that. But you've just got to dig in. You dig in and do what you do, and make sure that we're doing the basics well. And carry on, because the market flows, it ebbs and flows. You can have a few weeks or even months that are quite challenging, and then all of a sudden it'll turn and it'll do well. So there's no easy answer, but we've all been here before. I'd echo what others have said in terms of it's certainly the most difficult time I've known in the industry, but, you know, our business is in a good place, and we're in a good place to weather the storm and look forward to better trading environments in times to come, which we can then take advantage of.
What do you think needs to happen for the market to come back? I mean, we had Mike Hawes on the stage yesterday saying that the government hasn't helped with their demonisation of diesel. We had Jeremy Hicks, the MD of Jaguar Land Rover, who was very outspoken about how the government hasn't helped the industry. What would you like to see happen? I mean, is it Brexit solved quickly? Is it a better message coming from the government on diesel? What's going to help the industry get better?
I think we're suffering from a combination of factors at the moment, and I think probably Brexit is the dark cloud out there, and perhaps causing the real issue in terms of impact on exchange rates, which means that the manufacturers don't have the margin that they perhaps had in the past, which is putting the squeeze on dealers. We could really do with some vision in terms of what's going to happen with Brexit. And I think until we've got that, I think it's going to be a difficult time for the economy, and we ride the back of the economy.
Nick, would you recommend franchise car sales to any dealer?
No, I don't think to any dealer. I think you have to go into it with a mindset of wanting to build something for the future and be prepared to change as part of that process. And so I think you have to think about it carefully before you do it. Certainly different manufacturers and different franchises have different approach to how they want to interact with their dealers. And so therefore I think you do have to pick one that suits you. You know, we try to be the lower cost, easier to do business with end, and there are other manufacturers who, many of the higher volume ones, are much more prescriptive. So I think you've got to pick something that fits you. And just to add a note of a little bit of optimism on markets, certainly our dealers at the moment are finding decent volume and decent profit per unit. So long may that continue. If this chair was wood, I'd be touching it.
Will, what about yourself? Would you recommend franchise car sales to anybody who came up during the show today?
Like, I've only ever known us be a franchise. I don't know anything else apart from when I was a pizza delivery boy at the age of 17. But that's all I know of franchising. But like personally, I love it. You know, recently we saw the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross come back on the television. Next 2-3 days, we had continuous footfall of people coming through. Personally, we didn't spend any money for that marketing. Obviously, yep, it's in the margins of the cars, but you've got a joint goal. So you get really good marketing support. Obviously, with Suzuki as well, in the Northeast, we enjoyed Ant and Deck up until recently. But I think everyone knows what happened there. So you've got great marketing support, training. You know, I'm more of a Geordie than a genius. When we've got ideas, you've got clever people that can come and help you. Tell them your ideas, and they'll say, yeah, it'll work, or no, it'll not work. As I say, I'm by far not the brightest person in the world. Passionate, yeah. But the bit I love about it the most is the amount of people that you meet. And I keep going back to people, but, you know, I've met some of my best friends through this, and I don't see other dealers as the network. I see them as my friends, and, you know, we've had some, dare say, good nights as well. So, it's good fun.
And Nick, I'm not going to ask you this question, but Will, if you were going to invest in a franchise now, who would it be? And you can guess why I'm not asking Nick.
To be honest, I'm very proud of 2 of our 3 franchises. As long as they weren't setting up near me, I'd encourage them to join 2 of the 3. I'll not mention any names of which 2 of the 3 they are, but I'd pick one with a really nice set of demonstrators as well, possibly.
So you could just drive it around. What about you, Ken? Who would you pick at the moment? Who would you recommend the most?
Who's my favourite child? I've got to say one of the best franchises for us at the moment is Kia. You know, we're making good returns out of the franchise. I drive a Kia myself. Product's fabulous. A great relationship with the Kia management. And it's very much a two-way street. You know, we seem to like them, and I think they like us. They keep offering us more opportunities, so it's probably a good thing. It's a great franchise. We've got other great franchises, but I would say Kia is probably one of the best for us. And it's no coincidence that they ranked so highly on the NFDA survey.
Okay, thank you very much. That's about all we've got time for on this panel, but in the next few minutes at 12:30, Rebecca's going to be up here talking about merging the channels, how to bring online customers in store. But please put your hands together for my fantastic panel.